In this video, we'll review the distributive law, what it is, why we use it, and how to do it. So when we look at this first example, 5 times 4 minus 2, this one doesn't have any variables. So when we learn something like this in math, we use BEDMAS. We learn that we do everything in brackets first, and then later we can multiply. So what we do is we say, okay, let me do 4 minus 2 first. That equals 2, and then I'm going to take that and multiply that to 5, getting me to an answer of 10. And that's all good. We like doing it that way. That's the way that is actually probably the easiest way to do it. But there's a second way, and that's called the distributive law. And what the distributive law tells us is you can distribute, you can multiply the 5 instead of to the answer of what's in brackets. You can multiply the 5 to each of the numbers inside the brackets, or what we can say each of the terms, and that will work out just as well, because what we're going to do actually is multiply twice and subtract once, instead of subtracting once and multiplying once. So it's a little bit longer in this first example to use the distributive law, but it works out. So let's try it. 5 times 4 is 20. So that's the first term done. And then 5 times negative 2. That's a negative 2 because if we added the opposite, we would get plus negative 2. So this is 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. And 20 minus 10 is 10. So we have two ways that we can solve with regular whole numbers order of operations. But when we change the question to, instead of having numbers, have a variable, for example, m minus 2. Now all of a sudden, when we try to use BEDMAS, we can't. Because how can we take 2 away from m when we don't have a clue what m is? So in this case, we actually can't use BEDMAS. We can't use order of operations. We only have one choice, and that's to use the distributive law. We only can multiply the 5 to the first term, which is m, and then multiply the 5 to the second term, which is negative 2. So this results in 5 times m. Remember, that's like a 1m. So it's like 5 times 1 is 5, m. And then 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. So what we've done here, the reason why we do this at all, is to get rid of those brackets, because without getting rid of the brackets, we're not able to simplify. We could substitute, but in the end, if we're trying to get m by itself, we can't do it with those brackets around. And that's why we distribute. So we're going to expand and simplify, and we're going to do that through distributing. So first up, whenever we see brackets, as in number 3, 4, and 5, our first order of business is to clear those brackets. And the only way to clear the brackets is to distribute the number that's in front of them, this 8, for example. We're going to multiply that by the first term, and we're going to multiply that by the second term. And when we do that, it's just as good as if we actually could do h minus 3. So the first term, 8 times h, that's like 8 times 1h, so that's just 8h. And the second term, we have 8 times negative 3, and 8 times negative 3 is negative 24. So that's simplifying it. We can't do anything more because we have an h, 8h, and then minus 24, there is no h. So we're done here in terms of how much more we can simplify. That's it. Number 4, we're going to get rid of the brackets by distributing that -7 to b and to the -5. So we're going to multiply -7 times b is -7b, and then -7 times -5 is going to result in a positive answer. Negative times negative makes a positive 35. And again, nothing more we can do because we have b plus 35, so we can't make any more changes. Number 5, we have 2 places to distribute. You see how this -4 is basically touching the bracket? That means you need to multiply that to the r, first term, and the -3, second term. And the same thing goes over here with the 2. I'm going to multiply that to the r and distribute it. That's just a fancy way of saying multiply to the +2. So we're going to do one at a time. -4 times r, that's like a 1, remember, coefficient is +1. So that's going to be -4r, that term is done. Now we multiply to the second term. -4 times -3 is a +12. In our next one, we take 2 times r, that's a +1. So that's going to end up with a +2r. And then lastly, that term's done. 2 times 2. It's going to be 2 times +2. That's going to be a +4. Now when we look at this one, it looks lots longer than the other 2, right? Because we had to distribute twice. So now what we can do is we can combine like terms. And combining like terms means finding the things that are the same. So the r's go with the r's, and the constants go with the constants. So remember, the sign in front is what we're going to take. So this is -4r plus 2r. Because they're the same, all we have to do is add or subtract the coefficients, pardon me. So -4r plus 2r is going to result in a -2r. So I'm going to write that first, -2r. And then for my constants, I have a +12 plus 4. So that's a 12 plus 4, which is 16. So it's going to be -2r plus 16. Now I'm simplified as far as I can go. I hope you found this video helpful for distributive law and you'd be ready to do the exercises in lesson 5.2.